ladies and gentlemen, so this is the stock trigger on the Zastava. We are clear, we are unloaded. I'm gonna pull the trigger here, do it like that. So it's actually pretty good out of the box. A little bit of take up here, but it's not super heavy or anything weird. And it just breaks. It's not crisp, but it's not bad. It's not that bad. Moves a lot here, front end. It doesn't have a real distinct wall, but you pull right through it. Not a lot of disruption of the rifle when you're shooting it. Okay, not the greatest trigger, but it's not that bad. Let's see what the weight is on it. It's about 4.5 pounds. It's around 5, so it's not super consistent. It's around 5. So between 4.5 and 5 pounds out of the box, but relatively manageable. So in installing the ALG trigger, there's a lot of drag happening inside, like a lot. So I'm going to relieve a little bit of material from left and right side so it operates freely. Also, when putting the safety on, we have a lot of movement. So we're gonna need the roll pin that goes, now it's kind of hard to do this, in this space, right there, in that hole, okay? We're gonna need to utilize that roll pin. Okay, so we're talking about the Zastava. We just installed the ALG trigger in it, and it's a lot better, obviously. It's a lot cleaner, a lot lighter. Trigger pull breaks right around 2.5 pounds, between 2.5 and 2 3/4. I will say, fitting it to this Zastava rifle, now I've got a sample size of 1. Your experience may vary. The trigger was getting caught up and binding a lot on the left and right sides of the receiver, so you could barely move it. I mean, barely. Went ahead and removed some material from those surfaces, and it runs nice and smooth now. Getting it all back in was a little bit of a pain with the stock hammer spring, but you know, where there's a will, there's a way. It's not as easy as putting a freaking bread twisty tie on it and holding it in place. That's for damn sure. But I was able to get it in nonetheless. So I'll kind of demonstrate the trigger. It's kind of hanging up a little bit, but through use, that'll kind of calm down. Not sure if you can get a good look at that. Very light. A lot less movement than the stock trigger, but I will say, nice reset, very tactile, very clean. It's not super crisp. There's a little bit of movement in the front end, but it's an AK. Come on. The original trigger that came in this rifle was actually pretty damn good. It was really smooth. I don't know what brand they're using in the production rifle, but the original one was very good. If any of you guys can help me out with that, I'd love to know who or what actual trigger they're using in the stock rifle. But this is the ALG AKT/EL or -EL trigger for the AK series. One more quick thing I want to say about this. Not only did I have to fit the trigger to the actual receiver or vice versa, I did have to use the roll pin. There was way too much play without using it. That was, not going to work out. But once fitted, man, check this out. There is zero movement. I mean, that thing's not budging. But once you get it off, press is nice and easy. Yeah, I think that's about all I had to say about the trigger. Market improvement over stock, even though the stock one is completely serviceable, very usable, and quite nice, to be honest with you. I've seen other rifles where the trigger was horrendous. This one was not the case, but you do have to fit it, or I had to fit mine, to the receiver, and I do use the roll pin. They do give you an additional roll pin and an additional spring to add tension to the trigger if you want it. That's optional. I didn't screw anything up, so I didn't need the other roll pin. So that's all I got, man. Great trigger. I can't wait to get out and actually shoot it with this trigger and maybe just do some comparisons on how fast you can shoot it, controllability, accuracy, etc.